Don't panic, grab your tea and biscuits as we're about to uncover the life, military career and most importantly the medals of Britain's most lovable Home Guard hero, Lance Corporal Jones. Looking at Jones' medal ribbon bar, he was entitled to 12 medals, which are all campaign medals other than one Army Long Service and Good Conduct medal and 2 foreign awards. Looking at Jones's medal set, there are a couple of anomalies that need to be set straight, primarily concerning 2 awards which are given to Jones, the Egypt Medal and the India General Service 95, or the India Medal. We will now dive into each medal and unravel those myths. Medal number 1. The Egypt Medal, 1882 to 1889. Jones mentions in his first campaign that he went to the Sudan as a drummer boy as part of the relief expedition to save General Gordon. Although it's claimed Jones served in the Royal Warwickshire Regiment by his later medals, there is no evidence of the Royal Warwickshires serving in this specific campaign. That said, let's look at Jones' early life according to Dad's Army. He was born in Warmington-on-Sea in 1870, Warmington-on-Sea being a fictional town on the south coast of England in the vicinity of East Sussex and Kent. Enlisting as a boy soldier in 1884, it's more likely that Jones joined a locally based regiment rather than the Warwickshires, who were based in the Midlands. 2 locally based regiments, the Royal Sussex Regiment and the Royal West Kent Regiment, would have been based nearby and would have looked to have prioritised local recruits, such as Jones. Both of these regiments were involved in the Gordon Relief Expedition. The Gordon Relief Expedition, also known as the Nile Expedition, was a British military operation conducted from 1884 to 1885 to rescue Major General Charles Gordon and his garrison in Khartoum, the Sudan, who were besieged by Mahdist forces led by the self-proclaimed Mahdi, Mohammed Ahmed. Interestingly, Gordon's lifelong close friend and bestie was Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Durnford of Isand Luana fame. The relief expedition, travelling south from Egypt, Britain's ally, was divided into 2 columns. The river column, led by General Sir Garnet Wolseley, travelled by the river route, the Nile, while the desert column, commanded by Major General Sir Herbert Stewart, took a more direct overland route. With limited water, the mainstay of the desert column would be the highly innovative Camel Corps, which amounted to 94 officers and 1,600 hand-picked men from a large number of regiments. This was proposed by Wolseley. However, it did anger the conservative Duke of Cambridge, who believed it undermined regimental integrity. Essentially, each selected regiment that came would provide 45 men, including 2 officers, for the campaign, to merge into a Camel Corps consisting of a mounted infantry camel regiment, a guards camel regiment, and a light and heavy camel regiment. Line infantry provided the men for the mounted infantry regiment, which did not include the Royal Warwickshire Regiment. The Royal Marine Light Infantry and exclusive guards regiments would provide men for the guards camel regiment, and cavalry regiments would make up the remainder of the 2 regiments for the Camel Corps. The tactical concept for the Camel Corps required that it should do battle on foot in accordance with the standard infantry drills of the day. On the march, the column would move 40 abreast, with the camel regiment split front and rear of the baggage camels. The 19th Hussars would remain as cavalry and would be thrown out in the front and flanks as a wide-roaming reconnaissance and early warning screen. Standard operating procedure would be, if the British regiments were attacked on the line of march, the camels were to be gathered in a great central mass and made to kneel down, while the troops formed 2 squares at diagonally opposite corners of the mass of animals. After a few brigade field days, this rather novel formation could be achieved in truly impressive times of less than 2 minutes. The fact that the Heavy Cavalry Regiment, known as the HCR, was composed of cavalrymen and not infantrymen is an important fact that we'll get to later. Making a dash across the desert before heading to Khartoum, the Desert Column needed to replenish their camels at the strategically important wells near Abu Klea. It is here that the Mahdist forces were waiting for them. Initially citing a few thousand men of the Mahdist army, after a day of skirmishing without either side fully committing to battle, Stewart formed his men into a defensive square and spent an uncomfortable night under sporadic sniper fire and hearing the tom-tom drums of the enemy nearby. on the 16th of January 1885. At dawn, Mahdist riflemen opened up increasingly intense fire on the square. Stuart, frustrated after unsuccessfully attempting the Mahdists to attack and taking increasing casualties, decided to leave around 300 men with the baggage train and advance his square into open ground. He hoped this would finally compel the Mahdist forces to attack. Under heavy sniper fire, rather than keep the square 4 deep, the British expanded the square to only 2 deep. Advancing over broken ground and with lots of moody camels in the middle of the square, the formation started to become more ragged.
Author Lieutenant Colonel Mike Snook states, Abu Clear is cited as one of the rare instances a British square was broken, but in reality the square was no longer intact.
This was the Mahdist chance, and who suddenly attacked a weak spot targeting the northwest corner of the square, which was held by the cavalrymen of the Heavy Cavalry Regiment. To make matters worse, a Gardner machine gun jammed just at the moment of the Mahdist attack.
Naval Brigade sailors manning the gun fired off about 70 rounds before it jammed. Then they were rushed by the Mahdists.
At the same time, another attack was launched at the southeast corner of the square, but were repulsed with thunderous volleys from the infantrymen of the Royal Sussex. Over 30 ponies were shot down in the Mahdist charge, breaking it up, with the fanatical Mahdists reaching the British line and coming to blows with the cavalrymen and sailors from the Naval Brigade. Fierce hand-to-hand combat ensued. It was spear against cutlass and sword against bayonet. Seeing the square breached, officers of the Mounted Infantry Campbell Brigade turned their rear ranks to fire into the melee, with the tide of the attack somehow repulsed. Many praised them for saving the day and keeping their cool. After the battle, some critics blamed the cavalrymen and their officers for allowing the square to be breached, stating their unfamiliarity with infantry drill and discipline, especially under pressure.
This battle lasted about 15 minutes, and although bloody, the British held on despite intense pressure by the Mahdists.
The patch of desert around and in the square was a scene of carnage, with around 1,100 dead Mahdists and 74 British killed. 2/3 of the British casualties were cavalrymen. Of the 40-strong naval detachment, 8 were killed. Suffering heavy casualties and disenchanted with their attack, the Mahdists fell back towards Khartoum, leaving the British in charge of the battlefield. The expedition finally reached Khartoum on January the 28th, 1885, but tragically they had arrived 2 days too late. Khartoum had fallen to the Mahdists on the 26th, and Gordon, along with the entire garrison and thousands of civilians, had been killed.
The failure of the expedition led to significant criticism and controversy, with blame being allocated to a variety of parties, including Sir Garnet Wolseley and Prime Minister Gladstone.
Having witnessed Jones's horrendous horse riding skills at Captain Square's manor in Dad's army, perhaps he was a dab hand at riding a camel, or, more likely, as a boy soldier, he would have been employed along with the bandsmen who traditionally acted as stretcher bearers or first aiders during battles. The medal itself, the obverse is a veiled profile of Queen Victoria and the reverse the Sphinx. 14 clasps were issued with Abu Clear and the Nile 1884-5, likely going to Jones as part of the Royal West Kents. The ribbon is 3 blue and 2 white stripes representing the white and blue Nile. The Khedive of Egypt, Britain's ally, also issued a medal, made in Birmingham of all places, to British troops that Jones shows in his ribbon bar. Medal number 2, the Khedive Star. The obverse is a 5-pointed star showing the Sphinx and a pyramid surrounded by a band inscribed Egypt 1882. The Khedive of Egypt and the Muslim year is also written in Arabic. The reverse is the Khedive's monogram surmounted by a crown. The star is suspended by an ornamental clasp. These were issued unnamed with a plain obverse. Medal number 3, the India Medal or India General Service 95.
In the summer of 1897, unrest and rebellion ignited across the whole of the northwest frontier.
The uprising was due to a variety of factors, but essentially the result of smouldering resentment against the British, coupled with a charismatic religious cleric who incited an uprising against the British. Caught off their guard on a dark day for the British Army and a shock for Queen Victoria, 2 forts on the Khyber Pass were captured by tribesmen and torched, and much of the pass briefly taken. Other British forts scattered across the frontier also came under attack, with sieges being conducted at Malakand Fort in Malakand Province and Shabkadar Fort in Momand.
As a result, over 36,000 British and Indian troops were mustered to confront the tribesmen, restore order to the region, and regain British prestige.
These troops were divided into 4 field forces: the Momand, Malakand, Tirah and Tochi field forces. Each was, over a 10-month period, to restore order to various parts of the frontier. I go into this overall campaign in more detail in my video on Winston Churchill. According to British Battles and Medals by Spink, again, there is no record of any Royal Warwickshire Regiment being involved in this campaign or any individual from that regiment being awarded a medal. However, the Royal West Kent Regiment was involved. 7 Royal West Kent soldiers were logged in the Tirah Field Force, mainly in a support function. Frustratingly, there is no record of their rank or specialism. Therefore, they qualified for the Tirah clasp. The remainder of the Royal West Kent Regiment, likely based in the vicinity of Nowshera and Peshawar during the time, looked like it was on rear echelon duties, but also qualified for the Punjab Frontier clasp. So, stretching it a little, but if Jones was one of those 7 soldiers involved in the Tirah campaign, he could have qualified for 2 clasps of the IGS 95 medal.
With the incentive of extra pay, British regiments would train some of their men on heliograph courses.
If those 7 men were not officers, it could be that these men were communication specialists, detached for duties to make up the numbers with the Tirah Field Force. There was always a shortage of trained heliographers in the army, so that could make sense. And knowing Jones' proclivity for volunteering, he could have gone, even if he had dodgy eyesight. Therefore, Jones staying with the Royal Kents in this capacity could qualify for this medal. 11 Victoria Crosses were issued for this overall campaign, with peace finally being restored in April 1898. Issued between 1895 and 1902, this medal replaced the India General Service Medal 1854, awarded for similar campaigns in India and the surrounding areas over the last 4 decades. The medal itself, issued in silver, 7 clasps are issued with this medal, 4 for this specific campaign including Malakand, Punjab Frontier, Tirah and Samana. The obverse portrays Queen Victoria and the reverse a British and Indian soldier supporting a standard. King Edward VII appears for the later Waziristan 1901 to 1902 clasp. The ribbon is crimson with 2 dark green stripes. Shameless plug, but if you are interested in the Northwest Frontier and the campaigns that occurred there in the second half of the 19th century, consider purchasing my book, Clasps of Courage, The Gripping Story of the IGS 1854. The Amazon link is in the main channel description. In the book, you can learn more about soldiers' lives in India, their opponents, and Britain's minor wars, including invasions of Persia, Malaysia, and Bhutan, amongst others.
Much of the content about India from this channel is taken from my book, so purchasing it does help educate yourself about the period as well as help support this channel, so thank you.
Medal number 4, the Queen's Sudan Medal.
This medal was issued for the reconquest of the Sudan, and this is where we first see Jones's medal history finally aligning with the history of the Royal Warwickshire Regiment. So I'm going to speculate that Jones, after the Tirah campaign and desperate for more action, transferred to the Royal Warwickshire Regiment that were about to embark on a campaign in the Sudan.
The reconquest of the Sudan was a military campaign led by the Anglo-Egyptian forces under General Horatio Herbert Kitchener. The campaign aimed to reclaim Sudanese territory lost to Mahdi's forces. This was previously claimed by Egypt with the support of the British. Mahdi's forces in Sudan were led by Khalifa Abdullahi ibn Muhammad, successor to the Mahdi, Muhammad Ahmed. Reinvading Sudan, Anglo-Egyptian forces advancing towards Khartoum, the capital, were confronted by the Sudanist Mahdist army at Omdurman. Again, I go into more detail about this in my video on Winston Churchill, but the Royal Warwickshires were in the 1st Brigade during the battle.
British and Egyptian success here led to the eventual capture of Khartoum in 1899 and the restoration of British and Egyptian rule to the region.
The medal itself was made of silver. The obverse is the Jubilee bust of Queen Victoria and the reverse a seated figure of Victory holding palms and laurels with flags in the background and the word Sudan below her. Unusually, no clasps were issued. The ribbon is half yellow and half black, divided by a thin crimson line. Medals awarded to the 21st Lancers, who Winston Churchill charged with, are particularly sought after. Jones, like other British troops, was also awarded the Khedive's Sudan Medal. Medal number 5, the Khedive Medal. The obverse is an Arabic inscription translated as Abbas Hilm II and the date 1314 or 1897, and the reverse an oval shield surrounded by flags and a trophy of arms. 15 clasps were awarded. The medal is silver or bronze and the ribbon is yellow with a broad central blue stripe. Now on to the Boer War, 1899 to 1902. Medal number 6, the Queen's South Africa Medal. Arriving in South Africa in November 1898, the 2nd Battalion Royal Warwickshires were present at the engagements of Belfast, Diamond Hill, as well as several others. And if Jones was originally in the 1st Battalion, transferring between battalions within a regiment was fairly plausible. So Jones would qualify for the Queen's South Africa Medal.
I'm sure throughout the campaign, Jones would have been itching to get at the Boers with the cold steel and really frustrated by their guerrilla tactics.
This is a rough example of the type of clasps that Jones would have been awarded on his medal. 250,000 Queen's South Africa medals were made. Units awarded came from across the Empire, including India, Canada, Australia and New Zealand. Some of the rarer clasps include the Defence and Relief of Ladysmith and the Relief of Mafeking, amongst others. The obverse is the Jubilee bust of Queen Victoria, and the reverse, Britannia holding the flag and laurel crown, looking out over a large group of colonial forces and warships. The words South Africa are around the top of the medal. The ribbon is red with 2 narrow blue stripes and a broad central orange stripe. Medal number 7, the King's South Africa Medal. For the King's South Africa Medal on his ribbon bar, Jones would have had to have been serving in South Africa from the 1st of January 1902 or completed 18-month service in country before the 1st of June 1902. However, the 2nd Battalion, depleted by fever in late 1900, they were sent as an escort with prisoners to Bermuda before the close of the war. However, we can speculate as to why Jones would have stayed on to earn his King's South Africa Medal. There are 3 likely options. Number 1, he was hospitalised and unable to travel due to fever. In quite a few of the Dad's Army episodes, we do see Jones get struck with bouts of fever and malaria from time to time. Potentially once he had recovered, he was seconded temporarily to another regiment in need of men. Number 2, acting as mounted infantry. However, this is doubtful with Jones's horse riding skills. Number 3, with his recently acquired heliograph skills, which he used on the Northwest Frontier, his skills may have been in need by other units, and, desperate for more action, he volunteered for a secondment rather than boring guard duty in Bermuda.
Interestingly, only 31 King's South Africa medals were issued to the Royal Navy. This was because, in 1901, the majority of the Royal Naval Brigade members withdrew to their ships.
The medal itself, the King's South Africa Medal, was always issued alongside the Queen's South Africa Medal and never issued without a clasp, with either South Africa 1901 or 1902. The obverse is King Edward VII in Field Marshal's outfit. The reverse is the same as the Queen's Medal. The ribbon is green, white and orange stripes in equal width. Now on to his next campaign medal. Number 8, the India General Service Medal 1908 to 35. In 1908, significant unrest broke out amongst the Afridi Pathan tribesmen on the northwest frontier. British and Indian forces organised an expedition to restore order. 430 men of the Royal Warwickshires were involved in this campaign as part of the Momand Field Force. So again, for this campaign, Jones's ribbon is correct. In my previous video of the Cad and Bounder Lord Flashart from Blackadder fame, I go into more detail about this specific Momand campaign. Perhaps Jones and Flashart even served briefly alongside one another. Operating in the Peshawar area, 2 companies of the Royal Warwickshires were used as a strike force along with other units in the Matta area. On 19th of April, an NCO of the regiment was accidentally shot dead.
A series of 12 clasps were issued for various minor campaigns for this medal between 1908 and 1905.
The medal itself, the obverse was a bust of King George V after the death of Edward VII, and the reverse is Jamrud Fort that overlooks the Khyber Pass. The ribbon is dark green with a broad blue central stripe. In the interest of time, we now have Jones's medal combination of World War I. At that time, Jones was aged in his 40s and potentially lingering on in the regiment, assisting the regimental quartermaster and perhaps with the catering where he learned his butcher's trade. He may have also been on the reserves and been activated at the outbreak of war in August 1914. It seems Jones was known as the Mad Bomber and had a splendid time lobbing grenades at German troops in the trenches, likely spreading more chaos amongst his own troops lobbing those grenades around than the Germans. The Royal Warwickshires were part of the BEF, or British Expeditionary Force, sent to France in 1914, so that makes sense. Jones was then invalided home with poor eyesight in 1915. Medals 9, 10 and 11 are the 1914 Star, the British War Medal and the Victory Medal. I go into more detail in all these medals and other Dad's Army videos. Links will be at the end of the video. Finally, medal number 12, the Long Service and Good Conduct Medal. The Army Long Service and Good Conduct Medal was instituted in 1830. The medal is silver. The obverse displays the reigning monarch, which until 1901 was a trophy of arms. The reverse says for long service and good conduct. The ribbon is crimson with 2 white stripes at the edges. So in summary for Jones's career, he joined the Royal West Kent Regiment in 1884, earned his Egypt Medal and Khedive Star, and then served with the regiment on the northwest frontier, earning his IGS 95. He then transferred to the Royal Warwickshires and fought in the Sudan, earning his Sudan and Khedive Medal. Transferring to an opposite battalion in the Royal Warwickshires, he then fights in the Boer War and earns his pair of King's and Queen's South Africa medals. He then goes back to India and again fights on the northwest frontier in 1908, and finally earns his World War I trio, serving in the trenches for about a year between 1914 and 1915. At some point as well, he earns a Good Conduct Medal, sometime probably around the 1900s. For research in this video, I used 2 excellent books, British Battles and Medals by Spink and Lieutenant Colonel Mike Snook's Into the Jaws of Death, which was a fantastic research tool for the Egyptian campaign of 1884-85.
Thanks for watching. There are links to my other Dad's Army videos at the end of the video if you want to find out more about World War I and the experiences of Private Fraser and the pompous Captain Square.